TikTok, it's time to rock. Welcome to the channel, folks. Welcome to a special edition, Brad, of the channel. We have, at long last, after months and months and months of chasing him down and securing and negotiating the contract, we managed to get Zakk to join us, bro. How did you do it?
I don't know.
Look, my people spoke to your people, and we just had to work out a few things.
Yeah, look, a bit of gentle persuasion as well. Arm twist behind the back, forced him on.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah. It's good. It's good to see both of you guys. Brad. Look, we've had the pleasure of Zakk on the channel a few times, bro. So we look forward very, very soon for you to do an intro again, please, for Zakk. Yeah. And then Zakk's going to tell us what he's been up to, and then we'll have a bit of a chat about this great album that, jeepers, we thought... When did we decide that we were going to do this? When we did Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell, is that right?
I think it was last time Zakk was on. What was that one, Zakk, last time?
Was it not 1987?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
And then Brad and I did a few texts afterwards. And I mentioned if you guys ever do Holy Diver, I'll be happy to do it. When was that?
Maybe 12 months. I don't know, Zakk. Time runs away, my friend. But for anyone who doesn't know, Zakk is our brother in arms. He's plays in a band called Chocolate Starfish. Amazing player. So Andrew's going to share all of Zakk's links to Chocolate Starfish and his Instagram as well. Zakk's own Instagram, so you can go across there and hook up with Zakk. And so bit of a round of applause. Have you got the round of applause there, Andrew, for Zakk? Come on, mate.
Oh, yeah, mate. Look, I think we should at least, mate, honour him. To be fair, though, Brad, he's been getting a few of those ovations and claps. You've been touring for a while, Zakk, I understand, and you're still on tour, brother.
Yeah, so we've been doing the Chocolate Starfish 30-year anniversary tour. So we started in June. We're almost winding up. We've had this weekend off because of the grand finals, and then we've got some. I think we've got Crown Casino next weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and then the weekend after we're doing Frankston Geelong.
Wow.
And then we do a few gigs here and there, and then we go do Rock the Boats, which we've done for the last few years, which is always heaps of fun.
Yeah. Truth be told, Chocolate Starfish took this weekend off so Zakk could come on here. That's why they did it.
See? That's how it worked.
Yeah, and the 30-year anniversary is going to go on for 30 years, Zakk. So, well done. 30-year tour, mate. You're locked in.
Well done. We were just having a chat, folks, in the green room quickly before we managed to get live on time, folks. So it must be the rock professor. He must be the reason why Brad and I are always late. So we'll blame him. So we want to do a little bit of a shout out to the rock professor who can't be with us today because he's got some family things to do. And I just want to do a special shout out to you two boys for joining us because we have daylight saving here in New Zealand. So we are 7 o'clock here, which is the normal quote unquote start time of the channel. And it's an hour early for you guys because you guys don't have daylight saving until next week because, of course, it's the grand final. So you can't have time get in the way of the grand final. But, Zakk, it was interesting because you were saying something because we're Rolling Stones fans here that you heard that the Rolling Stones were the first act that the AFL tried to get, but something got in the way, Zakk.
Yeah, they were the first act they wanted, and they wanted a rather large amount of money. Let's just say that, and for 4 songs, and so they moved next down the line. Look, the entertainment was entertainment. Reviews have been pretty mixed. It is what it is.
Yeah. That dollar value, Zakk, that's about what you get per gig, mate, from what I'm aware of.
All right. Nothing. All right. Okay. All right. No comment. Good on you, mate. I love it. Just like a pro. So what we're going to do, guys, is Brad's going to do a shout out. He's going to be looking after that side of the show very, very shortly. But I suppose what we should do, guys, is we should talk a little bit about the album. We love talking about that before we get into it. I've got no other news, guys, that's happened during the week before we do that properly. I know that we like to talk about any birthdays or events or anything that's happened. I can't think of anything. Is there anything, Zakk, that's come to your mind that you want to do a shout out that's happened over the last week musically?
No, but I haven't spoken to Brad since he's had the haircut.
Oh.
So, I guess you guys have spoken about it already, but what brought that on, Bradley?
I was over in Spain. I was over in Spain with my partner, and I got headlocked and forced into the chair. And no, actually, I had a fight with a lawnmower and it won. So yeah. So no, look, it's just one of those things. I go through stages of long hair for a long time, and then I just felt like it was time to go. Time to cut it short for a while. Don't know what the future holds, but while I've still got hair, try and look after it. So, you know how it is. So
you makes you look like a very young man. Looks good.
Yeah, it does. It does. I'm glad you said that, Zakk, because that was a thing that the Rock Professor and I, when Brad came on, who's this dude? Who's this who's this imposter?
Yeah. Look, sometimes it's good to do that, and my hair feels a lot healthier for it, so it's a good thing. I mean, I've had long hair, God, a lot of my adult life. From a teenager on, I've had a couple of times I've cut it short and then let it grow again, and just felt really good to just cut it short. It actually feels really healthy and really good. So anyone who's got cut it short.
Yeah, it's only hair.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Zakk, for bringing that to our attention again. To have a bit of a shout out about that. Brad. Oh, as Zakk referred to you, Bradley.
I've got one shout out to do, Andrew, and it's to ex-Dio guitarist Doug Aldridge. He's going through, or I believe he's just had throat surgery, throat cancer. I think he's got. And hopefully, wishing you a very speedy recovery. And occasionally Doug's, responded to a couple of things. So on my social media. So I hopefully he gets this, and lots of prayers and well wishes to you, my friend. So an amazing guitar player, and he seems like such a really cool dude. So
I think he's got that reputation of just one of the nicest guys in the biz,
Yeah, and look, to be honest with you, to be fair, I only discovered Doug Aldridge through Dio, so that's why I thought it's appropriate we bring it up on this show. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that, bro. I noticed that when I caught up with a couple of your posts earlier today, you mentioned that about Doug, so thanks for that, because, we've got to remember that, guys. A lot of the musicians we follow and guitar players, Zakk, we're following, they're not young guys anymore, Zakk. They are, they're getting older and older and older. So one of the reasons why we like kind of doing what we do here on this part of the YouTube universe too, guys. It's our little bit of appreciation for the years and years of joy and satisfaction these guys have given us. And in particular, I suppose, you know, this album, Brad.
Oh yeah, this sounds. I'm absolutely stoked you picked this one, Zakk, and we've been wanting to do it, and we've been holding off because I knew you mentioned it. I thought we can't go and do this show without you, mate. So it's an absolute ball-tearing album from Dio. Probably his most classic and most well-known solo album, I reckon, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100% from my perspective, and you know, I'm just going to kick it off with a couple of thoughts before we go round table, I suppose. You know, from my perspective, going back in the day, you know, it was Heaven and Hell, which came out in 80, 81, and then, you know, a couple of years later, 3 years later, it was, and Dio was always then a point of focus for a conversation. If you were talking about metal or heavy metal or whatever it was, or rock music back then, and then when the rumors were going around that, you know, there was a new solo album, and remember, Zakk, you know, the information that we used to get back in the olden days, you know, guitar magazines and music magazines, and if you were lucky, radio DJs, you know, on some of the radio stations that you used to listen to, would give you a little bit of information, you know, that this album was in the pipeline. And, you know, with my circle of friends, Zakk, there was a lot of excitement because of Vivian Campbell, especially. You know, we kind of knew who he was, but it wasn't until this album came out, guys, that we definitely knew who Vivian Campbell was, if that makes any sense, Zakk.
Yeah, 100%. I got all my information from, remember the magazine Kerrang?
Yeah.
So I get that weekly. So you were sort of a week behind in all the metal news. And I remember I was in year 10 in 83. So I remember, yeah, there was a lot of interest, and apparently they Jake E. Lee was involved for a little bit. Even John Sykes for a tiny bit. But Vivian wanted to have an unknown guitarist, and the story is Jimmy Bain was in a band called Wild Horses after Lizzie, and Vivian's band Sweet Savage supported them, and so Jimmy, I know this guy, and yeah, apparently rang Vivian's house at 2 a.m, only because his dad's name was Vivian Campbell as well, and yeah, he got on the plane and with his Les Paul, and rest is history.
Yeah. Remarkable.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about what you've just said there, Zakk, is, you know, from our perspective, we knew Thin Lizzy, you know, the guys that I was hanging out with. We weren't, Brad, by any stretch of the imagination, Thin Lizzy nuts. But, you know, you kind of, in 83, Thin Lizzy are on the radar for conversations, you know, because of the bass player, Phil, you know, and then Gary Moore, and, you know, so you kind of know, and the name was there, Zakk, you know, so, okay, this guy clearly had some kind of credentials, and I don't recall back in 83 in my mind knowing a lot about Vivian Campbell at all, Brad. So,
No.
so, but when this album dropped, you know, definitely, you know, he was a name, you know, that a lot of us were using in a lot of our conversations. What about you, Brad? You know, you're the young fella. You got this a couple of years later after we got it. So, but you've got a story, I'm sure.
I got this album in the 90s, probably late 90s, and that was really because, you know, I was getting right into Black Sabbath at the time, and Dio, obviously Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules. Those albums were pretty high on my rotation. I loved Dio's voice, and I thought, you know, I'm going to go buy Heaven and Hell. Heaven and Hell, which he did, which was the album he did with Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward, was it? No, or Vinny Appice. Yeah. So I bought that, and I thought, at the same time, I went and bought this album as well. And, this album, once I put it on, I was like, this is killer. Yeah, there's just something about it that, I was discovering rock music in the 90s, discovered playing guitar in the 90s, and, this one was on a high rotation for sure. I loved Vivian Campbell's playing on this album. I still do. I get excited by it because it's got a lot of the influences. Like, I reckon he influenced a lot of the other guitarists that I'm influenced by as well. You can hear it. It's there. They probably all influenced each other somewhat. Sykes. You can hear a bit of that. You can hear a bit of Gary Moore there. You can hear a bit of everything. The real percussive playing. That's something that really excites me. Players that do that. It's, we talk about that lightning fast sort of picking he does as well and whatnot. It's very, very Sykesy, if that makes sense. But he's definitely got his own style, and something that his playing really excites me on this record. And I was really, really blown away by the track listing from the word go to the last song. It's like a journey. It's perfect. You couldn't change any of the songs around. I don't want to spoil the track rankings and things like that, but I don't think you could put any of the songs in any other order on this album. It's perfect.
Yeah, I agree with you. Zakk, you were talking to us in the green room there before. You were lining up. You lined up to get the album. You've got a copy of the album there. So, do you want to share with us, your thoughts about lining up and getting that record in year 10 and taking it home and the impact and the influence it had on you first of all as a music fan listening to it, and then later on as a guitar player, as a developing your own style?
It's it's very hard to remember back that far almost now. But where I grew up in Canberra, we had an import record store called Impact, and I'd go there once a week, and I'd pretty much get an album and a Kerrang, and so I knew the date it was coming out, and when did it come out? In October? Or
so Holy Diver came out in May 1983. May 20.
Yeah, year 10. I actually don't remember going to buy it, but I remember the impact of putting it on and just hearing that opening riff, because I think I was expecting a doomy Sabbath thing, and everybody, I guess, in the early 80s, it was getting to more of that sort of, I guess, well, you had your new wave of British heavy metal bands, and everything was getting sort of a bit more faster, and there was bands like Accept, and so yeah, that riff just, you can imagine that image of that was a classic ad from back in the day, the guy sitting by the stereo with the hair blowing back. That's what happened to me. It's like, holy.
I can just picture you doing that, Zakk. I don't know why I find that funny, but I do.
It's what is happening?
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw the album. I think about 3 or 4 weeks after the album was released, guys. And do you guys remember back in the day you had those bags, those canvas bags that you used to put your albums in? And you'd have 3 or 4 albums, and you'd go over to Zakk's place after school or whatever with your 3 albums or whatever, and Brad had his, because your albums couldn't fit in your school bag, and you wouldn't put them in your school bag because they were precious things. Hold that album up, Zakk. So that bag, that record bag you had was pretty important. Anyway, like I said to you guys before, I went to a Catholic school, and so it was really cool, bringing that album cover out, and then having a look. Oh shit, it was like you were holding, blasphemy. It was like great.
I know. It's a fantastic album cover, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, look, I know we've got some picks that we'd like to show at halftime, but if people aren't familiar with the album cover, here it is. There it is there.
That's just iconic, isn't it?
It's amazing. It's like a storybook in one picture, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of those. It takes me back to having album covers that huge, and all you would do is put the record on and just stare at the album cover. You know, like that.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore. You know.
No, it's an art form that's lost, Zakk. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know, going to the record store, buying a record, taking it home, going through the liner notes, looking to see if there's anything, in the liner notes that you didn't know, and you're looking through it.
You just devour everything on it, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Including like the special thanks. You want to see if they thanked anyone that you know. It's amazing. Yeah. That art form's lost, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and certainly some of those album covers were events, weren't they? All the Iron Maiden album covers, especially. We spoke about the Black Sabbath Heaven and Hell album cover, with the angels on there, and then again when we did the Van Halen '84, the similar theme, with the angels smoking cigarettes, the continuation. But album covers were events, and and trying to work out your meaning after listening to the songs, especially, to see, it's all a dying art form, because you can't really do that on a Spotify playlist, can you?
No.
I actually tried that today because I've never actually opened up on Spotify. I tried to click on the album cover to make it larger and look at it, but you can't.
Well, and also I've noticed that a lot of album covers on Spotify, they're not, they don't look as crisp and as good as the original ones. Spotify have just gone and found like a crappy version of it and put it on there. Like sometimes they're even the wrong color, or the grading, or it's just
Yeah. No, totally.
Blue Murder's back on Spotify.
Oh,
brilliant.
Back.
My son informed me.
Oh, that's amazing.
But to be fair though, guys, we do celebrate the fact that vinyl is making progress and headway now. The what's that, JB Hi-Fi's here in town here, wasn't that long ago where they had no vinyl. It was just rows of CDs, and then all of a sudden there were no CDs. Now you go in there, it's just rows of vinyl, guys. It's just incredible. It's mind-blowing. How vinyl has just taken off, and from the perspective that we were just talking about, from that whole experience, it's good to see Zoomers, young cats, and experiencing what we did back in the early 80s, Zakk.
Yeah, Zoomers, I like that. I personally, I love it that kids are using vinyl. I'm sort of, I'm not in. Like, I was glad when vinyl ended, because I'm big on. I have a phone with a huge hard drive, so I have high res versions of all my favorite music on my computer, which I sync to my phone. So that's
sure.
And because my listening experience these days is generally 99% in my car.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, and can't put a record player in a car.
Yeah, true.
Yes. Can I just interrupt though, bro? What's interesting though about the young folks and the Zoomers in particular buying vinyl is they realise that we had the secret. That's the thing. So we had it, guys. We and then we can appreciate this for what it is. But they can't, they can't appreciate this for what it is because they never experienced what we did. So they've got to go and do
that's
it.
Good. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, I agree. Totally. Now, it's something that, I'm like you, Zakk. I pretty much have you know, I went through that full, you know, circle of putting all my CDs high res onto computer, then putting them onto a hard drive, and I use like USBs, quite large USBs for my car, and I listen to all my music off USBs in the car. I don't listen to really Spotify that much, unless I haven't got that on me, and I just use Spotify. But for the most part, all the music I listen to is the same stuff I've been listening to for pretty much the last 30 years or so. And
Me too. Me too.
you know, there's not a lot of new stuff that excites me, but I mean, occasionally something will come out and it'll blow me away a little bit. But that whole art form, I was into buying CDs more than the LPs. Andrew and Zakk, I was more. So I'd go buy. I mean, I've got tubs and tubs and tubs full of CDs. I don't have that many. Like I pretty much got every album of every artist I love. You know, it's ridiculous. And then when CDs started to die out, I was like, oh, come on, you know. But I do like the fact that LPs are. I mean, I've got a small vinyl collection, which is getting bigger, but I'm a CD guy. I like to have CDs and the album artwork, and I used to love the digipacks or whatever they call them, the cardboard ones where you pull out and it'd be a little book and you read the book, and you know, I love all that stuff. Yeah. But I mean, in all fairness, artists now are doing, you know, re-releases, like box sets of like a classic album and adding extra stuff on it, and liner notes and books like the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge one I bought just recently. It's got all this big book in it. It's got all the extra stuff. It's amazing. And then there's hours of just sitting there looking at pictures and stuff you've never seen before, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm not an audiophile, guys, you know, and I know some guys who are, you know, and if you are, that's fine. You know, if you want to have a $20,000, you know, stereo system, go for it. You know, but you know, I'm quite happy with my stereo system. I'm quite happy to listen to Spotify through my AirPods. I'm quite happy to listen to a CD, Zakk, and my, you know, I don't give a shit what it is, so long as I'm listening to something, you know. Yeah, you know. But if people are, you know, snobbish about what they listen to, well, that's cool too.
Yeah,
I think Spotify has been great for somebody like my son, who he's discovering all these bands, you know. So it's great for the younger folk, you know.
Well, can I just ask? But you know, you guys have got young dudes, so just I want to ask this question. You know, so back in the day when we had albums and we were listening to rock, you know, the top 40 or the top 10, and you know, in between chasing girls and eating your lunch and listening to music, not much was getting done. So you know, these young guys today, with Spotify, there's like hours worth of music, Zakk. You know, so I can't do anything, Dad. I've got to listen to this back catalogue. I'm sorry, I'm not putting the rubbish out. I'm not mowing the lawn.
That's my house.
Yeah, no, my son, he spends a lot of time on Spotify. His musical tastes are very diverse. He makes up his own playlists, and I think, you know, he started off being a real old school rocker like me, into Hendrix, Zeppelin, all of that. He loves the Tea Party. He loves all that stuff. He loves Van Halen. He loves all these different things, but now he's getting into different styles of music as well, and I think it's really cool. You know, it's showing a lot in his personality and what he's doing with himself, and he writes and tries to record stuff and all that, and it's something I'm like, where the hell did you come up with that idea? Like some new age sort of sound. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I mean, it's not necessarily rock and roll, but it's still rocking the way I said. It's a wonderful thing that they can get on there and look up different things and really bite the apple, you know, so to speak, and really have a taste of what's out there. I know, Zakk, you know, with your son, he's right into the rock stuff, which is really cool. You know, and so there's an abundance of that stuff on Spotify. You can just, I mean, back in the day, like for me and probably you, Zakk and Andrew, we used to have to go and buy something to discover something new, really.
Sure.
Well,
I told him the other day, like there was this live Blue Murder album that was only available in Japan in the 90s. So I ordered it, and it was like $60 or something, you know. Like, but you know, I didn't care. But now you think about it now, and you're like, that's just crazy.
yeah, true.
But I wanted it, you know. I had to have it.
Yeah,
that's right. You know, I used to go to a place in the city, in Sydney, called Time Warp Records, Utopia Records. I used to order all the stuff I couldn't get, you know, and now it's in abundance on Spotify. So I guess that is a bonus. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey guys, it's been great sharing these thoughts and experiences with you. I'm mindful of the time because you know we've been live for half an hour already. Zakk, do you want to? Sorry, Brad, do you want to do a shout out to the folks, and then we'll kick off the album rankings? What do you guys reckon? Otherwise, we'll be here for 3.
Yeah, well, normally we try to get the chat to 15 minutes. So basically, yeah, we've doubled that. It's great. But we could talk like this for hours, I'm sure.
Sure.
So I want to say thanks to everyone who's joined us so far. We've got Hugh Caldwell, Greg Roberts Tune, Arvin, thanks for joining us there. Ellen, my mother, is back again. Gretch Zeppelin, good to see you. Who else have I missed? Did I say Nelson? Nelson, yep, I said you. And I think there's a few more people lurking. So if you want to give us a shout out, say hello, and we'll say a shout out back to you. And anyone who's watching later, don't forget to subscribe. I keep forgetting that one, Andrew.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And during the course of the show, I'll be putting some links to Zakk's projects, and if you can go and support him and over there, that'll be great. Do you want to kick off the rankings, Zakk, because you are our guest?
Okay, let's go with the opening track. Obviously, "Stand Up and Shout." Probably one of my favorite metal songs of all time. It's kind of like a mission statement when that starts. It's like, cop this, and that it's a 10 out of 10 song. Viv's, I don't. Can you still say the word spastic in this day and age, or you can't? Like some of his solo style is.
We're not into the woke generation here, mate. Just
okay. So it's like he has this frantic style, which I think you said earlier, Brad. It's exciting, isn't it? You know, and when he hits that first solo, it's just like, whoa. And a lot of these solos, you know, this album was basically recorded live. You know, they did a few takes. They did it in Sound City, the famous Sound City, and the drums sound really cool because they built their own. They basically went to Home Depot, which is, you know, Bunnings, and built a little room and put the drums in there, and they've got this cool sound. And I think we'll talk about it later, but Vinny Appice is almost the secret weapon of this album. Like, his drumming is so musical and so cool. Like, and he just propels these songs. And and this Dio's voice, I'd say that this is also peak Dio. Like, it's just marvelous. Makes me smile. I can put that song on any time of day and just, it's almost like the horns up. It's killer. 10 out of 10.
Yep.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. It's definitely one of those albums that gets you really excited. The opening track, I think it's a killer opening track. It's like, I like to say, like, high energy. It's got a lot of energy there. I'm glad, you know, bands back in this day used to record a lot live, and you can feel that energy of live sort of in the studio. I love that. I put here a note here: don't drive while listening to this song because you end up speaking. Yes, all week I've been listening to this in the car. Like you, Zakk, I get a lot of my music played in the car while I'm traveling. And, you know, I found myself going a little bit over the speed limit a couple of times. I couldn't help it. it's a great delivery from the band. I mean, Ronnie James Dio's vocal performance here is explosive, is assertive. You know, he's matching that sort of call to action. You know, stand up and shout. Like, it's just like it gets you revved up. You can't help it. You know, he switches, you know, between that high pitched sort of voice and the screams and that sort of rapid fire delivery he does. I think the lyrics are fantastic, very catchy sing along sort of style chorus. So it gets the crowd pumped up. You know, every time I hear this live, you know, you can't help it. You know, when you watch the crowd in the videos and that, they're right into it. Vivian Campbell, I mean, the riffing it's aggressive. It's got a fast sort of aggression to it. I love that. And there's a little bit of a galloping sort of rhythm going on. I mean, you talk about bands of the era. I think they were all very much influencing each other at the time. Again, Zakk, you mentioned when you first heard this album, you were expecting a little bit more Sabbath vibes potentially because you'd never heard it before. And I think the first time I listened to it, I was thinking, oh, what's it going to sound like Sabbath, you know, Sabbath, like very doomy, and it was far from. I love that. It's I think the solo that Vivian Campbell does in this song, it's blistering. I mean, it's filled with all that sort of alternate picking stuff. It's great tone, really fitting to the album. I love the sounds on this record. I mean, it's a real era, like early sort of 80s sound. It's very cool. But to me, this album sounds like it might have been, if you weren't aware of it being released in 83, you'd think it was recorded in the 70s. It's got that sort of sound to it. And I love that. I love the cheeky sort of harmonic squeals he uses on this album and throws a few in this song. Jimmy Bain, obviously on bass, he's just thumping along. And, you know, Vinny, his drumming is explosive, syncopated, and he's just got a real sense of urgency and power. And I think the song, it's a fantastic opening track. And I, too, gave it 10 out of 10, guys. Andrew.
Thanks, bro. Thanks for outstanding comments on the opening track, guys. And Alan has given it a 10 out of 10 too. I'm just going to take a couple of points from you, Zakk, especially. You mentioned the special room that they built. I made a note here, and I've listened to this album a few times because it's been on my playlist back over a year ago when we thought that we were going to do this a couple of times. So I've listened to this album, Brad, a few times over the last 12 months. But over the last week especially, there's a couple of things that came to my attention, Zakk. Vinny's drumming is ahead of the time. His tone, what he's doing with his drumming could easily fit in the early 90s, the way that he's getting that snap on his snare especially. So, you know, remarkable, just ahead of the time. And also, I have to tell you, obviously, the vocals of Dio, his ability to sing a song is just about in its own league by itself. And he just gets better and better, doesn't he, through this album. But you just remember, you know, you're listening to this album for the first time, Dio, wow. You know, he's just continuing from my mind, Zakk, back years and years ago from Heaven and Hell. There's, you know, I'm going, wow, this is it. So if there is a Black Sabbath connection, that's it for me, you know. But I know what you mean, though, by a Black Sabbath connection, and I think there's a couple of tracks later on where there's definitely elements of Black... Yeah, so cool. I'm glad that we're on to that. But I just have to make this point before I hand it back to Zakk, guys. I got to tell you, after listening to this album for a week, Vivian Campbell is just an incredible guitar player, and nothing he did with Def Leppard came close to what he's done on this album. And I've been listening to Def Leppard for a long time, guys, and you know, they've done some good stuff, but what Vivian's done on this track, it's like, you know, for a young guy, again, ahead of his time, Zakk. So I too have given this 10 out of 10. It's just an incredible opening track. Zakk.
I'll just talk about Viv for 1 sec. It's a pity. It took him years and years. I mean, 20, 30 years to come back to this album and appreciate his own style, because he hated it for a long time, and he had obviously money issues with Ronnie. But when it went to the last in line, the next album, he started getting too influenced. Like, he felt it was full on imposter syndrome, because he was in LA surrounded by the Malmsteens and the Gilberts and all those guys.
Yep.
And he started playing a guitar with the Floyd Rose and changed his style, which, is sad, because he's killer on that first album. Not that he's not great later, but I think it affected his mind too much.
Correct. You nailed it, bro.
Yeah, I agree, Zachy. 100%.
All right. Next track, Holy Diver.
Yeah.
Okay. Starts off with that way too long keyboard intro, which is always. Get
on with it. Get on with it.
I actually put it into Audacity and just did a fade in just to the. I do stupid stuff like that.
Good on you.
It's just too long. Anyway, when it hits, so it's obviously it's got the vibe a bit of like Heaven and Hell, with that ding. So they wrote it with that was Ronnie on bass, just jamming with Vinny. That those two apparently used to like a lot of the old hashish. Well, apparently a lot of this album, Vinny and Ronnie smoked a lot of weed. Vivian drank a hell of a lot of coffee, and Jimmy was
boozer.
But anyway, they jammed that for ages, and that song started out of a jam. I still don't know actually what a Holy Diver is, but it's got all the classic lines of, Ride the Tiger. It's almost become funny. But at the time, me at whatever age, it was so like sort of mystical and powerful, and so yeah, I think the lyrics are really cool, even though some people would say cheesy. Again, it's like, I guess this is one of the two epics on the album. It's got an amazing solo, and apparently this was Vivian apparently had tons of coffee, Ronnie's rolling joints, and Vinny kept doing solos over and over and over. And he said by the end he'd run out of all these, great licks he had, and then he just started making stuff up. And that's when Ronnie said, "Now that's what we want to keep," and that's the solo apparently.
Wow.
And yeah, and another cool thing about Vivian, I've seen famous people over the years try and copy his style. Look, I don't think anybody can copy anybody's style. Like, you can't play like anybody. But again, he's got his certain feel, which is really cool. And it's a classic track now. Lots of bands have covered it, and I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10.
Yep.
Yeah. Well done, Zakk. I don't know if this is true. I read once, or I may have heard it in an interview with Ronnie James Dio, that this was a song he was writing or had an idea for to use in Sabbath. And obviously his departure from Sabbath, he didn't use it and kept it. I'm not sure how true that is or not, but for me, it certainly sounds like it was written with a Sabbath vibe to it. This is the first one on the album that has a bit of a Sabbath thing going on, like Heaven and Hell. It's got a real, that spooky sort of keyboard intro that like you said, Zakk, maybe it drags on a little bit. We won't tell Matty Ray that, but it drags on a little bit. But Dio's vocal performance in this song is outstanding. It's very dynamic. It's moving like a real sinister sort of sound and tone in his voice. Then he gets really powerful, and the choruses, his voice is soaring. I love the lyrics, great lyrics, catchy melody, and you know, he does his own BVs. You can hear his voice sort of doing the BVs in this, and I love hearing that. You know, a lot of singers back in this day used to do their own BVs, and I love how he's done it. It sounds fantastic. I think the main guitar riff is very dark and heavy. You know, Vivian's solo in this is very melodic and expressive. It's, you know, there's a lot of sustained sort of long notes and what I call wild vibrato. You know, variations between wide vibrato and very close vibrato. It's unbelievably well phrased, that he's soloing. There's some really cool fast runs. I love his style. His playing is, you know, really highlighted on this song. You know, Jimmy Bain's bass work. You said this is Dio playing bass.
No, that was just when they wrote it, because they would get there earlier and they would sit there and smoke and jam. You know.
Yeah, cool. I mean, if it's Jimmy Bain on bass, it's got a lot of weight to the riff, the way he's playing it, and he's maintaining that really strong, solid, heavy groove that I expect from bass players. You know, it's very cool, very cool. And you know, Vinny piece. I don't know, it's a moderate tempo. It's not, but it sort of just has a lot of tension the way he's playing, and I think a lot of it had to do with his style, the kick and snare patterns, and his tom fills are phenomenal in this record. You know, in particular. I've made a note here. Look, I think this song is definitely something like 100 out of 10. It's phenomenal. I think you know, I was jamming along to it. I put a little video of me doing it just for muck around because I loved it. It's such a cool riff, and anyone can play it. It's just one of those, you know, you pick up your guitar and start jamming to this song. It's great. Yeah, so it's an amazing track. I'll give it 100 out of 10, Andrew. Over to you.
Cheers, guys. Thank you again for some great insights. And again, you know, being the third wheel on this vehicle, I have to sort of come through and back up some of the points that our co-hosts have mentioned. And in particular, you know, I have to mention, for me, there is definitely a Black Sabbath vibe going on here, Zakk. And you mentioned it, Brad, and I think you know, that it could have been, or was something left over, or that was going to be on Heaven and Hell. I didn't know that, so I've made that note here, so thanks for backing that up. And Zakk, you mentioned some interesting insight on the guitar solo, because I've made a note here that this is a rock and roll guitar solo on this track. This is not quote unquote a heavy metal guitar solo. So interesting. So you know, so clearly what Vivian's done is he's done the Dio kind of stuff that he thought the solo would need, and then in the end he's just gone back and done a classic rock and roll solo, you know, probably something that he learnt when he was 13 or 14 years old. So yeah, interesting how, you know, we've picked up on that, you know, the three of us. Again, one of the great things, you know, reasons why we like doing this, because we can find those similarities and do some archaeology, Brad. And look, Zakk, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, Zakk, to say the lyrics are cool. Lyrics are never corny. I love the lyrics on this song. Bro. They're not corny. No. No. I get where you're coming from, though. Good on you. Good on you for saying that. But no, I think the lyrics are incredible. I've even underlined it, Brad. I just love the fact that these guys, and got to remember this too, guys, that Ronnie isn't an Englishman. Ronnie is an American. And a lot of the guys that we listen to, like Robert Plant is an example, who's an English guy, you know, they kind of come from that English literary sort of tradition, you know. And one of the great things about Ronnie being this American guy from Italian descent, and from New York, you know, he can write a story, can't he?
No.
He was I mean, I think Ronnie wishes he was from England, because he
yes,
apparently, you know, lived in a castle, had a pub in it, drank a lot of beer, but he read a lot of books.
Yeah.
He's writing books.
Yeah, clearly, you know, Tolkien and you know all these great guys, Crowley as well, definitely reading a lot of that stuff, a lot of the romantic poets as well, so go and watch that DVD that's on his life where he talks about that. So you're right, Zakk. And also the influence of hanging out with these English musicians too over the years, as well, sort of helped him, I think, capture the ability to put a story in 2 verses, Brad. That's pretty incredible, bro. Yeah.
Yeah. I love how the material on this record, in the lyrical content, there's a lot of drama. I love it. There's so much, there's passion and drama in it, like, stand up and shout, it's
Yes.
like, it's, and then they're so dramatic with Holy Dave, and it's just,
but the way he delivers it for and we've mentioned this before, he's not a big fellow. And if you go and watch the videos of him, playing with Dio in 83, 84, he's only a little but the way he just gets behind, and just pump. Wow. It's like, I can feel the hair sticking up on the back. Yeah.
My favorite Dio lyric is always,
yeah. You got it, bro.
I know, Brad, it's Vinny Appice and Carmine Appice.
Carmine Appice, yeah.
They both pronounce their surname differently.
Yeah, but they're brothers, though, aren't they?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they're both brothers. Interesting, but each telling their own story, and that's okay. Look, guys, I'm going to pass this back on to Zakk. I've given this a Brad score. The opening track and this track and the next one are just exceptional. And before I do that, though, I'm going to do a shout out because we have Helene O'Hara in the chat. So, hey, Helene, good to see you. She's from Melbourne as well. So thanks for joining us. Zakk.
Okay, so
I'm going to grab a Coke.
The next song is a Gypsy, and I think it's about a train. I think. Again, like that starts off. You hear that cool guitar tone, which for the guitar heads is apparently a 77 Les Paul Deluxe with Damasio pickups, JCM 800, Super Overdrive. That old combination.
The tone.
It works.
Zakk's tone.
So yeah, Andrew, I think Gypsy's about a train. Have you heard that?
Yes. Yeah? But I can't confirm it, though, because you know what rock and roll stories are like, though.
So this is the first song that has almost like a pop element into it, where it's really early in the 80s, so that sort of pop metal hadn't become a thing yet. We hadn't heard of Bon Jovi and all of that kind of thing, but this is super melodic, still heavy, but it's got that sort of a bounce to it. It's got really cool harmonies from Ronnie, like really melodic harmonies. I think that's the main thing I get from this song. That it's and it's the pre-chorus, when it's the I'm not going to sing on YouTube, but the pre-chorus where it goes down, don't. And actually, no, sorry, I'm doing Caught in the Middle, aren't I, right now? Gypsy. Let's go back to Gypsy. It's just got that. Come back to me.
Come back to you?
Yeah.
You want me to go next?
I've got some notes on it, but I've got some notes on it.
I'll go next. Guys, I did not know it was about a train. I'll say that straight off. I thought it sounds like a man entrapped by a seductive sort of gypsy woman. That's what I kind of thought it was about. But hey, I'll go with the train vibe. I think that's pretty bluesy. It's cool. It's got a mix of like aggression and drama, like I said before. Great vocal performance. You know, just Dio really highlights his amazing vocal ability on this album, but especially this song. Vivian's Campbell's main riff is pretty bluesy. I reckon it's got a bit of blues there. It's got some cheeky pinch harmonics and you know, the slide. It's got a few slides in there and stuff like that. It's got the typical solo that's pretty full on with some amazing playing. It's very dynamic and expressive though. The bass work is very groovy on this track. You know, I think it adds to that sort of pop element that you mentioned. It's got a bit of you know, commercial viability because of this. I think the bass playing on it, yeah. And you know, there's some great stuff going on there. There's a really cool rhythmic feel. Drumming wise, look, I think it's pretty straightforward, but emphasizing the groove and supporting that sort of flow of the song. It's my one disappointment about this song as it fades out. I would have loved to have heard a classic rock ending on the end of this and really heard, you know, them stretch this one out, because it's a great third song, great third track for the album. You know, how do you follow up the first two tracks, Andrew, with a song like this? It's the only way. You couldn't put another song on there like Stand Up and Shout. This is perfect. And I mentioned in the header of this, the track listing and the track order of this album is absolutely perfect, and I think this is the perfect third song. So, Andrew, I gave it a 9 out of 10, mate, and never a skip.
Incredible. And there's a couple of points that I want to sort of tag on that you guys have mentioned, especially Zakk. We've got Zakk Z in the chat, and he's saying that he reckons the train factor is a metaphor for a girl. Of course, because that's what blues music has done through the course of blues. They talk about the train, you know, taking my heart, you know, but also the train being the vehicle for my future. Literally, for some of these guys down in, you know, the South, the Delta, you know, going up to Chicago, but also, as Zakk Z said, you know, it's a metaphor for a girl. So again, we're all right, you know, with our interpretation of the lyrics.
Thanks, Jack.
But Zakk, you said something really, really interesting, because I've made a note here that this song, Gypsy, and I adore this song. I've ranked this 10 out of 10. But I think this is a heavily Thin Lizzy inspired song, you know, and Thin Lizzy have had elements of giving that kind of pop kind of stuff, you know, to some songs in the past, and I think this is probably, I can't prove it, I don't know, I haven't read it anywhere, but I think this is where that might be coming from, you know, with who was the bass player of Thin Lizzy?
Phil.
Phil, yeah, you know, Phil. So I think that's where it might be coming from. And like I say, I can't prove it. The intro solo is incredible, and how that sort of comes into and in with the scream. It's like fantastic. It's, you know, it's brilliant, and also the drumming. On this track, Vinny's drumming on this track's, again, it's an incredible example of you know, what these guys were doing. What, in '83, you know, just phenomenal stuff. 3 or 4 years after the passing of John Bonham, and there's a couple of guys just sounding as good as, you know, John Bonham. So if people thought that rock and roll drumming had died in 1980. I'm allowed to say that, bro. I didn't say it's the same. I said it's in the continuity. It's in the groove, bro.
Don't ever compare to Bonham, mate.
No. And you know, I think it's an incredible song. And as I said to you guys before, I've given it 10 out of 10. But I think you're on the money there, Zakk, with this kind of pop rock. And yeah, because we've all, the three of us, have kind of thought about that.
Yeah, because it was kind of happening in Ozzy's career as well. It was like that sort of, I mean, pop metal is a strange word, but you know what I mean, like that melodic element.
Yep.
I think in this track, Dio's vocals sound especially sort of evil in a way. Like he's really, you can hear him really snarling as he's singing this, and there's something that also Vinny does in a lot of the songs. His drumming's very melodic, right? In the last verse of a lot of their songs, he always does this great roll in the middle of the verse. And I just love it. And I can sing all his drumming. And side note, apparently, Dave Grohl and Taylor Hawkins, one of the reasons they bought that studio in Sound City, because they loved this Dio album, and apparently they played the album in front of Vinny, and they both could every fill is just so melodic and memorable. And
wow,
that's unreal.
Yeah. Another sort of crazy solo from Viv, especially that second half. 10 out of 10.
Yeah,
awesome. Well, you got to intro the next song, bro, too. So
now we're caught in the middle. So this is the one I was talking about that had that sort of the pre-chorus, which is just super melodic. What he's singing there, and sort of what they're all my favorites, but I think this is a highlight of the track of the album, and it could have been. I think it could have been like what did they have? Like how many singles? Like 2. Could have been the 3rd single, I think, because it's probably the most melodic one. You know, that the chorus is quite poppy, and it's got a killer guitar solo in it. Yeah, 10 out of 10. I can't, one of my favorite tracks. And so the solo follows the vocal melody, which I always think is really cool. They start off with that pre-chorus vocal melody and does his thing.
Interesting points. I can't wait to meet you with my contribution on that one, Zakk. Brad.
Caught in the middle. Look, I think this is a great Dio vocal delivery song. It's a lot smoother than the previous song. I put, Zakk, you mentioned there's a little bit more trying to go for that evil thing in the previous song. I think it's a little bit smoother on this. It matches that sort of melodic tone that's going on with the song. Again, great lyrics, very catchy vocal delivery and chorus. I'll put here, Dio sings effortlessly on this track, and great backing vocals from him. Campbell's riffing is very catchy and bright. It's got a mix of power chords and melodic lines, and a great guitar solo again. Bass-wise, Bain's providing like a real solid foundation on this. It's really warm. And a big round tone, and the drumming. There's using tom fills to accentuate the transitions I put. So, but it sounds like sort of just holding back, a little restraining for the song, which is perfect. A lot of drummers like to play too much sometimes. I think it's like that balance between playing perfectly and overplaying. He just plays perfectly on this one. But I gave it 9.5 out of 10, guys, and never a skip. Andrew,
can I just pop in one thing? This, on my notes, this is an old Sweet Savage riff, apparently. There's a few songs on this album that are from Viv's old band.
Right. Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. So John ZD351 is late to the party because he didn't realise that we've got daylight saving here. So good to see you, brother.
Hey, John, give Andrew a hard time. That's he's doing, mate.
And Greg Roberts Tunes knows what a chocolate starfish is. So that's good.
Awesome.
No bullshit, Zakk. I've got here on Caught in the Middle, the vocals are fantastic, and interestingly, this is the most Def Leppard song most definitely song Vivian plays on this album. So I'm intrigued that we've come to that kind of connection, because when I first heard it after about maybe 4 months, Brad, of not listening to it, and I'm going, this could easily be on Hysteria, parts of his guitar playing, even though he didn't play guitar on Hysteria, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so Zakk has just said that this goes back to Vivian's previous band.
Yes.
Wow.
Do some homework later. Listen to that.
Yeah, interesting. I've given this a 9 out of 10, guys. Pretty hard to follow 3 great songs. But the 4th song coming in at 9.5 or 9, which is, what we're giving. It's not bad, Zakk, it's a pretty good 4th track, and it's never a skip.
Yeah. So we come to the next song, which is the first side closer.
Okay. So obviously, so we hear on the beginning apparently that is Ronnie's 12-string acoustic that Vivi's playing. There was rumours for a long time that the main riff, when it hits that main locomotive riff, there was a rumours that it was written by J.K. Lee.
Sounds
now,
it.
Wow.
It does, doesn't it? It sounds like something that could have been on, Bark at the Moon or.
Yeah. That's what instantly, Zakk. That's when I first ever heard it, and like even listening to it this week, I was like, "Bark at the Moon." This song. That's what I pictured. Yeah. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Interrupt whenever you like. It's obviously this song never left the Dio set. It's kind of one of their blockbuster songs, because it's got that obviously the Ronnie Love, the very moody melodic intro, and then just bang. The lyrics in this are really cool, and that very, very sort of Gary Moore type solo. At you can hear Viv's influences at the very end. That's one thing he said why he could never play like those guys in LA, because he said they all used light strings and played soft, and he was from the Gary Moore school of just going for it with and that's sort of Viv at full strength there, and it's a killer, very memorable solo. It's definitely a 10 out of 10. It's one of the big Dio hits.
I agree.
Propelled by Vinny, just propelled.
Yeah, well, I'll put here, Don't Talk to Strangers. I mean, talk about drama, the vocal delivery, the don't talk to strangers, the way he does it is very dramatic.
And the little whisper under it.
Very good.
Exactly. It's got that real drama to it. I love it. And music's missing a lot of this drama, I think, in this day and age. We're like old guys now, don't we? But yeah, I think we're missing a lot of this drama in music. And I mean, there's bands doing it, I guess, but they're just, So I love the intro, the acoustic, and it sort of adds to the dynamic of the song, because when the song builds up, it's got tension then, and it's got that sort of, J.K. Lee sort of thing going on there. And I think, Dio's performance on this, he's got that soft, delicate vocal going on, and then he's got the real aggressive side to it. He mirrors the shift in dynamics with his voice really, really well. He's one of the greats, as we all know, and some fantastic background vocals by Dio again. The chorus is very catchy, and it's a real melodic sort of, verses and great lyrics I put here. There's guitar-wise that sort of clean up pitch-added chord thing, and it transitions into that tension with the heavier side. I think Campbell's solo is beastly. I'll put that. I love the fast and intense lines he does. He's very percussive with his playing, and he demonstrates that a lot in this song. The bass playing is really subtle in the intro. It comes in a bit more sort of dominant during the heavier sections, but perfectly executed for the song. There's nothing out of place, and the drumming is just, starts off gentle and builds into that powerful thing that we know. It adds to the song's intensity. I mean, for me, it's a 10 out of 10, guys, and never a skip. It's one of Dio's biggest moments in rock and metal, I think. So, surpassing, I guess, some of the stuff with Sabbath, dare I say. Yeah. Andrew.
No, you're allowed to say it, bro. Look, again, we're all on the money here, folks. I've got perfection down here twice in my notes. It's the perfect Dio song. It's got the atmosphere and everything, that Dio loves. It's got that vibe, which is, if you've been listening to Dio, or indeed if you want to listen to this song, if you haven't listened to Dio, it's going to encapsulate everything that Dio's about as a songwriter and a performer. And again, Zakk, I have to pat you on the back, bro, and just say you've nailed it again. I've made this comment here that Vivian's guitar solo on this song is perfection. And thank you. If there's one thing that I would like, if you get one thing from this show, Zakk's made the connection to Gary Moore, being Irish, and the connection on this album with Vivian playing completely different from the LA guys, with his Les Paul, and we got some picks here because he's playing a Les Paul on this album with 11s, probably, Zakk, and he, as you guys have said, and when you listen to this, he's thrashing that guitar. He's not, he hasn't got 8s or 9s on there in a Floyd Rose, which comes a little bit later. But thanks for highlighting that again on this song, because there are influences there which are incredible. The guitar solo is just incredible. It's perfect. And I've given this a Brad score, Brad.
Yeah. Andrew, that's the end of side one. You want to show some photos now, or you want to wait?
No, we've got some pics here, bro. So this is the album cover that we put on before. And in the intro, we were talking, weren't we, Zakk, about how you're putting the album on back in the day, and you're looking at the album cover and you're going, my gosh. Bit of controversy apparently with this album cover, because they originally wanted the priest to be upside down with the crucifix, but they kind of said, that might upset a few people, so we'll just we'll get rid of the crucifix but keep the priest.
Yeah, that was that whole era of, in America, the Satanic Panic,
Yeah.
And they they were burning albums, and but Christians were picketing heavy metal concerts and all that silly
and
stuff.
Playing albums backwards, Zakk. They would have album playing backwards parties. Like, you remember, we used to have Tupperware parties. Mum would have a Tupperware party or something like that, So back in the day, all right, the neighbourhood playing album backwards party.
Just minutes.
Love that. Love the basic Dio. That was pretty cool.
The amount of times I drew, I used to love drawing band logos, especially I would draw them on some school books or my school bag, or I drew that a lot as a little fella.
Sure did. So that's the band there.
Yep.
Lots of hair, Brad.
Lots of hair.
It's Dio himself, the master.
I reckon he's saying, "Look out!" there.
You got it.
Yeah, they were let's say they were a very hairy band. It's a lot of hair there. Yeah. No makeup though. That's
no.
No
eyeliner.
Yep. Pre-makeup days, just young strapping lads out there playing.
So this is 84, and Vivian's playing a Kramer. And this is where Zakk said, you know, a little bit later, you know, the influence from the other side of America coming through. And again,
Yeah,
here you can.
I remember a picture in Kerrang when they were recording Last in Line, or just after, because there's a picture of Vivian on the bonnet of his, you know, he was already driving a Ferrari and he had a Chevelle, you know.
And there he is there with his black Les Paul.
Yep. There's some.
So that was sprayed black. It was he sanded
red.
it back and sprayed it black.
Wasn't it wine red initially, Zakk? Something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A deluxe, like, you know, brown.
Yeah.
Like Scott Gorham used to play in Thin Lizzy.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool.
And basically threw straight into a Marshall.
Yeah.
What's that, Jackson? Is that a Jackson? Yeah.
It's a Jackson, yeah.
With a Kayla.
Yeah.
Never seen him use that one live. That's from the video from in Holland '83. A VHS, which I wore that out. That's a great concert.
Yeah. And yeah, just an incredible guitar player. No, no bank of effects pedals, guys. You know that the guitar players have today. You know, it's just pretty much rock and roll straight into the amp.
That's how it should be.
Castle Grayskull.
Yeah, that's a great picture. That's a cool picture.
Yeah, just an incredible guitar player. And how old is he there in this band? You know, early 20s?
Yeah.
How? Yeah. Just.
I reckon he'd be probably 21.
And I'm going to stand by it, Zakk. Anything that, everything that he's done with Def Leppard is okay. But if you want to get into a full appreciation of Vivian, this is the album, in my opinion.
Have you heard his band Last in Line?
Yeah.
No. Is it worth checking out?
Definitely. It's
okay.
really, it's
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Okay, I can't bullshit. I'll check it out and get back to you.
Yeah, he's
all right. Let's go to
next track.
Straight Through the Heart.
Yes, sounds like something Wodsnake wrote.
Oh, there we go. So here's a little interesting fact about that intro drum roll. It's two drum rolls panned left and right, and one is forwards and the other one is backwards.
Wow.
So have a listen to it maybe with headphones on. And so this is almost like a it starts off with that riff, and then it goes into a really cool I'm really a frustrated drummer sometimes. I do a lot of air drumming, and that song sort of rumbles along. Apparently this was a Jimmy Bain riff. He was mucking around playing that riff, and because the story is they basically spent 2 months at Sound City before they started recording the album. They basically wrote the majority of the album in 2 months before the recording. So just all these classic songs were just written in a space of 2 months.
Wow.
That's incredible, I think.
Yeah, unbelievable.
What are my other notes for this song? Tracked it down. The killer solo with the harmony is another highlight for me. But this is a 9 out of 10 song. It's a little bit of a skip, but the solo is kind of the highlight. It's kind of it just doesn't match up to the epicness of the other songs. It's still killer, but it's not getting a 10.
Yep. Yep.
I hear
Yeah.
Love the straight through the heart. I put here, I love the big drum intro. I'm going to go and have a really good study of that now, Zakk. I'm going to listen to it when I go to the gym later in my headphones and have a good listen. Dio's voice on this is gritty, a little bit more grittier, and he's using fair bit of power there. His higher register adds like a lot of emotion to the song. It's a catchy chorus, another melodic sort of vibe song. Campbell's riff is heavy and straightforward. There's some cheeky squeals in it again. I love those. The solo change is awesome. For the solo part, the music changes, which is something I love from bands of this era, and it continued on to bands in the 90s and stuff like that. I love the solo. There's, again, some very percussive playing, that sort of the palm muting thing. I call that percussion sort of playing. I always think players who do that are frustrated drummers, yeah. So I'm going to say, Zakk, you're a frustrated drummer, right? So you're a percussive player as well. Great harmonized guitar part at the end of the solo, and the outro guitar parts are fantastic. Bass work is pretty simple but effective. Adds depth to the song, and the drumming is very just precise, and it's got adds to the song's intensity. I think I gave it 8.5 out of 10, guys, and never a skip. Andrew.
Yeah, interesting song for side 2, isn't it? Side 1's just about near perfection, and then we get this one here, and it still carries on that thread for me, which is Ronnie's vocal delivery. The way that he has that power and the passion, behind us, and then he can sort of sing delicately as well. I kind of like that, and that expressive element that he has, again, which puts him in a category all by himself. I've given this an 8 out of 10, Zakk, but it's never a skip, bro.
Yeah. What's next, guys?
Well, it's the big hit next, which so here's another bit of background for it. Even before the keyboard line appeared, it wasn't going to make the album because Ronnie said it was too poppy.
Wow.
And apparently one night, a drunk Jimmy Bain, just for a laugh, started put that keyboard line over the top of it, just to kind of make fun of it, and they all went, "There it is," and that's what it is. And I remember as a kid, I thought that keyboard line was quite cheesy. I didn't like it for a long time, but it's now become a classic thing, and it sounds. I actually like it more now than when back then.
Dude, I think we missed a song. My friend.
Oh, okay.
Invisible.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry. Continue on with
We'll go back to it.
Yeah, continue on, Rainbow.
It's become an iconic song, I think, and even the guitar solo in it as well is completely like that's. So if you wanted to play somebody, what does Vivian Campbell sound like? I think it's got a lot of his little things, like the rhythmic thing and the Gary Moore style, and also the lyrics are just classic Dio, like Rainbow in the Dark. There's some great lines in it. It's definitely it's the big Dio hit that probably most metalheads would know. It's an all-out, flat-out classic. It's a 10 out of 10 song.
Yeah, cool. We'll continue on with Rainbow in the Dark, Andrew, and then we'll go backwards to Invisible.
Sure.
I've put here that keyboard intro. It sort of sets the song up, and I think it's kind of like the main riff. Really, it's got that. It's commercially viable. I put that there. What else have I got here? It's got a big sort of sluggish groove. I like that. It's got that big sluggish sort of thing going on. Dio's vocal delivery here is powerful, intense. He sings with ease. I mean, as I said before, he's one of the greats, and this song was a mainstay, I think, in his set list too, Zakk, I believe. It probably never really came out of his set live. Yeah. I'm talking about the riff's iconic, and the guitar work. Like, there's a lot of blending those power chords with melody. The solo's pretty flashy. It's got a lot of that sort of lightning fast stuff at times, and I'll put here Gary Moore influenced. It's an amazing guitar solo. Bass, it's like a driving pulse. It's a solid foundation. And the drumming, it's a straightforward beat, but it allows the melody to shine in the song. And I think it's debunks the Rock Professor's second last song theory of, like, most second last songs are the weakest one on the album. I think this is one of the strongest songs on the album, and 10 out of 10 from me, and never a skip. Andrew?
It's okay. John said 351 saying that we're Zakk tracking. All right, so that's that's what we're doing. We're Zakk track. Keeping everyone on their toes. Zakk, thank you for telling me that backstory on this song, because back in the day, I never liked the keyboard intro. I'll be honest with you. I it seemed kind of weird. This weird kind of effect. But it wasn't until, later on, and then watching a couple of VHSs, a little bit later, and seeing this live and hearing, versions of it, and then going back to it and realizing, oh, yeah, it sounds pretty good. You can see what they were trying to do. They were trying to do something a little bit different. But back in the day, it didn't work for me. But now it does, to the point where, I've given this a Brad score, and it deserves its place in rock and roll history. And the vocals are powerful, as you've said, but, didn't know that it was, an accident. And one of the great things about rock and roll songs, Brad, as we know, it's, it's something, that's been added on later, or something, maybe a piss take or something like that, which makes the song sort of stand out. But as a standout track on the album, besides the vocals and everything else, it just has that musical element, doesn't it, Zakk? Which makes you go,
Yeah.
What's going on here? So, and Zakk Zedras personally, that's his favourite song and solo on that album. Hugh calls it the daddy.
Who's your daddy?
Yeah. But I've given this a Brad score because of that, and thanks for filling in some of those blanks. So we're going back to Invisible. We're Zakk tracking.
Yep, we're Zakk tracking here. I've got a little bit of goss on this one too. So
cool.
It's got that cool intro. Now before the track starts, there's a. The secret's been revealed. They mic'd up a tire, and that's the sound of a tire.
Really?
It's just a tire.
Wow. There you go.
That wobbly sound.
I think that's hilarious. Like, you think it's something mystical or something, or something. I remember, I think it was an interview with Vinny Appice, and he was saying, if only I'd kept that tire, because it'd just be worth a fortune now,
Oh, yeah.
This is again. It's got it has a great plod to it. This is Dio in his evil voice. He's got the power voice. He's got the evil voice. He's got the ballad voice. This is him full. Well, I'll call it power evil. And one of my favorite solos on the album too. This is him. Yeah, the second half of the solo, he does that awesome chromatic Gary Moore thing. It's just that's Viv as well. This is a 10 out of 10. It's a classic It's just power. This pure power. This song.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the solo is 10 out of 10.
Invisible. I've put here, I love it's a lovely guitar intro and that real watery effect on the guitar. Now, I don't know if that's done with a pedal or whether it's post effect, but it's got a real mellow vibe there. I'm going to sort of bring up an influence here. I don't know whether it's relevant or not, but I'm hearing a very Joe Walsh influence on this one from James Gang, that sort of thing. I'm hearing that on this song for some reason, especially in Dio's voice. His voice shifts a little bit on this song, but obviously he's got a lot of power in his voice, and his BVs are amazing as well. His vocal delivery is fantastic. Guitar-wise, Campbell uses harmonics and effects to create like an atmospheric sort of sound. Back in the day when limited effects meant you had to actually do things to try and make things sound like something different. Great solo. I put it, he's playing so clear on this solo. I love his dynamics. And he just has a wonderful way of building up a solo so naturally and wonderfully well. It's a real art form, like recording a solo. People don't understand. I think people just think you're just going to sit down for guitar and whittly diddly and come up with something. But to write an amazing solo, actually, whether it's improvised or not, it's a thought pattern, whether it's instantaneous or planned out. But he works so wonderfully well on this song with his solo. I'd love to know if it was just completely and utterly improvised or whether he worked it out beforehand, but it's wonderful. I put Bane's bass lines are just locked in, obviously, and the drumming is dynamic. It shifts the song, the moods of the song. It shifts along well. The only thing I sort of, say sucks about the song is the fade out. I want to hear more of what Campbell's playing there as it fades out. It's got a, it's my biggest beef with this era. They used to fade songs out. I want to hear a big rock ending. I'd rather hear what's been.
Brad,
yeah.
Brad, you can. There's there is. I think it's on Spotify. There's a remixed version of this album that came out last year.
Oh wow!
And there's no fade outs, so you can hear it.
Well, I'm going to go back and listen to that now. Thanks, Zakk. Yeah, no, that's how disconnected I am with Spotify. I didn't know that, so I'm going to go check it out. But yeah, that's my biggest beef with the song. I too gave it 10 out of 10, Zakk. Over to you, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks for the information too, Zakk, on that. Didn't know that. The solo on this track is great, isn't it? And also the keyboards, so again, we're getting a little bit of that keyboard. We got it on the track that we've ranked before, and we've got that. I don't know what the effect is, it's probably just the keyboard itself, Brad, because they were becoming instruments in themselves in the early 80s, weren't they? So, while you had, pop bands using those instruments, Zakk, you had, metal bands, using keyboards, which wasn't unusual because, Deep Purple had, one of the great Hammond organ players, and, so, it's not an unusual concept. But I like the fact, that Dio as a band leader is, bringing these elements into it. I've given this a 9 out of 10, guys. It's never a skip. Zakk.
Last track.
Okay, so this is a track I did used to skip for a long time because as a young guy, I was just into the fast stuff. And I was over. So just a bit. Apparently, this was basically their tribute to Black Sabbath. They were going to do it. This is their doomy track. They really went for a Sabbath vibe. Something else funny is now I did hear Vinny once talk about what they purposely did some backmasking on the end, but Ronnie is saying something really funny, like, just because you knew people were doing it at the time, like we said before, and they put something on there, but he's saying something completely ridiculous. And also all the choir you hear at the end, that's just all Ronnie. They
Really?
It sounds really cool.
Yeah.
So this song's taken me a long time to appreciate it and hear different versions of. I think I heard the Doug Aldrich version of the band do it live, and that's when I sort of went back and sort of appreciated it for what they were trying to do. So it's not going to get a 10 out of 10 from me, but it's and by the time they get to the third verse, you can hear that the band is just what's the word? They're really putting in to make it sound pummeling and doomy and accenting everything, and it's really awesome. But it's a 9 out of 10. And Dio's vocals are 10 out of 10 though.
Yeah. Shame on the note. Yeah, look, great album closer, I think.
Yeah.
I must admit, I'm probably a bit like you there, Zach. Maybe originally this one and Rainbow in the Dark, when I was younger, I wouldn't listen to them as much. But this, with maturity comes a sense of, appreciation for certain styles of music, and you start to appreciate some of these songs and a little bit more. I think this one here, and I know whatever lie I put, it's got that big sort of doomy sort of feel to the riff. It's got a bit of a Sabbath feel. I've put that. Dio's voice is brooding and intense. He uses his vocal range on this amazingly well. I wasn't aware that all that choir sort of stuff is just Dio, so that's outstanding. Campbell's sort of riff is very slow and sludgy, and the guitar playing's got that real Sabbath feel to it. I think it's probably one of the two songs on the album that have a bit of a Sabbath stamp to it. The bass work is pretty cool. There's some little runs here and there, very dark sort of sound, and the drumming is heavy and it's got that sort of foreboding sort of feel to the song, and it adds to it. Great outro to the song, which that sort of chanting stuff like gives a bit of a Sabbath feel as well, because Sabbath were all about getting the crowd involved in chanting with them, and I think that's maybe why they put this in the song. I too, Zachy, listened to the Aldridge version of this song a lot more than I did this one, and I think that gave me a little bit more appreciation going back listening to this, because at the time especially when I first started getting into Doug Aldridge, I was just listening to anything he was playing on, and I thought he did a great version of this song. But then listening to this, especially this week as well, listening to it every day just to make sure that I'm ranking it properly, I gave it an 8.5 out of 10, guys, and never a skip. Andrew.
Thanks, bro. We've got Jimmy Ray Hawkins popping in from Orange County, California. Good stuff. Great people, rad times. Love the diver. And Zach, Viv is golden during this time. This is a guy that's been on the West Coast for a long, long time, so he can appreciate what especially Vivian was doing on this album as a young cat. We've got to remember that. Pretty revolutionary. So, getting back to this track too, like you guys too, back in the day, I'm pretty sure I would have skipped this or, listened to it, I can't remember having great conversations with friends, Zach, early on about this track like previous tracks. But again, I've got to say to when you're sort of realizing, that elements of albums that other people are talking about maybe 5 up to 10 years later, you go back and check them. I remember severely going through when Dio passed away, going through a phase of just, listening to, a lot of his stuff as you do when someone kind of passes. And locking into the song, Brad. One thing in particular that I noticed in listening to this in preparation for the show is the bass on this track is fantastic. You can hear the bass obviously on previous tracks, but it's just there. It's not doing anything. Zakk, it's not like Heaven and Hell where you can hear the bass. You know, the bass is just functioning there in the mix, but clearly on this track here. And I think that's one of the ingredients of the Black Sabbath thing that you guys are talking about, where, you know, if they're going to make it doomy and kind of slow and a little bit, you know, what are you going to use? You know, you have to use the bass, don't you? So, you know, clearly that comes into it. Bro, I've given this a 9 out of 10. And like I said back in the day, it would have been a skip, but not anymore. You know, there's not a track on this album, guys, that's even in that category of skippable. But before I pass it back to you, Zakk, to sort of do the conclusion, one of the great things about going third is that I can jump in and pinch maybe a couple of concluding points from you guys. But there's no surprise. There's no surprise for me. Vivian Campbell, as a guitar player, doesn't get anywhere near the recognition I think, you know, that he should get. And I've spoken to about 3 or 4 guys during the week about this album at work, you know, in preparation for the show. You know, you talk to a couple of guys that you work with and say, you know, what are you doing? And, you know, no one, the 3 guys I spoke to, don't know anything about Vivian Campbell. And these are guys that know music, Brad. These are guys, they knew that he was the guitar player on Def Leppard, but can't recall any Def Leppard songs with Vivian Campbell playing guitar. So yeah, interesting.
We'll just we'll screenshot Zakk's reaction there, and you can send it to your mates. His mouth dropped.
Yeah. But I especially, I was really excited, you know, when we decided that we were going to do this because, you know, Zakk said it, you know, the connection between Gary Moore, you know, Gary Moore talks about Vivian Campbell. He's spoken about Vivian Campbell. There's lots of points where he talks about him. So, yeah, cool album.
Bloody ripper.
It's just, you know, it's an album that's aged like fine wine, hasn't it? Like it's like we said when we started, like you put on Stand Up and Shout, and it still brings me excitement. I think it still sounds on, you know, some albums, the production can get dated, or to me, it sounds great still. It kind of does sound of its era, but it's still, you know what I'm trying to say, like Back in Black, like it still has a thing, and I think it's only gotten better through time. I think it's aged really well.
Yeah, I agree.
It was the album, Vinny. It was the album that Ronnie, had to do. He had to do this album after being kicked out of Black Sabbath and kicked out of Rainbow. And, you know, that documentary where he talks about, you know, what's he going to do and where he's, and his partner at the time or wife at the time, you know, and, you know, getting this opportunity to, you know, do this album. And it was pretty successful at the time, Brad. You know, it was, you know, people were rating it as a great album. Wasn't it like a lot of albums we've done on this show where people have gone back and said, oh, it's great 20 years later, Zakk? You know, back in '83, this was a great album. So, but you can kind of understand why Ronnie became a bit of a control freak after this album when you consider the way that he was treated in previous bands. You kind of understand why he was what he turned out to be, you know, without sort of putting the boot in, because he didn't want to be sacked anymore, Zakk.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason the band's called Dio, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, for me, guys, Holy Diver is probably you know, it's a defining record of the 80s metal scene, without a doubt. It's like Holy Diver's like a cornerstone of heavy metal, you know, blending sort of that rock and metal thing that, you know, the songwriting, the way it's written, and it's Dio's probably most success or most well-known album, let's be honest, and it's his debut album as a solo artist. So even though Dio the band, it's really Dio because as as we know, the many lineup changes throughout Dio's career. I've got a question for you both, and I'll ask Zakk first because he's our guest. What song off this album would you play to an alien that's never heard Dio, and you wanted them to get a great representation of what Dio is from this record? What song would it be from this record?
Stand Up and Shout.
How about you, Andrew?
Just give me 2 seconds, bro. Just give me 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Give me 2. Stand Up and Shout. No. I'm going to go Holy Diver. Holy Diver.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
are the driver.
I think I'm leaning towards Holy Diver, but Stand Up and Shout's got the energy and it's got, like, it's a great opening track. I don't know. Look, probably Holy Diver because it's probably one of his most well-known songs. But I guess
side one is perfect. Play them. Just play them whole of side one.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, so listen, it's all one song. You got to listen to all of it. That's something.
Such a concept album. You got to listen to the whole of side one.
You just hit the nail on the head there, Andrew. It is like a bit of a concept record, in my opinion. It's got a. You have to really listen to this album from start to finish to get the real feel for the album. I think you can't really like. I mean, you could make a greatest hits or a playlist of Dio and pick your favorites out of it and stuff like that to listen to in the car. But when you're at home, you put this album on, you've got to listen to it from start to finish. You can't. You can't track. You can't skip a track.
I think if you did make a Dio's greatest hits album, you would actually have to include this whole album,
100%,
and then a few from later in the career.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. But before we end the show, I just want to remind folks, YouTube is a great place for you to go and check out stuff. Obviously, we're on YouTube as well, and you're watching us here and hanging out with us. But if you go and check out and watch some of the clips of Dio around 83, 84, especially if you want to get a bit of a vibe, and some of the crowd reactions, of this band during that time, you get a full appreciation, because there's a drama there in itself, Zakk, isn't it? With the way that and this is back with no digital screens behind them or anything like that. They're relying on the power of the music, and also the way that Ronnie. The way that he elaborates his he's very much like he's acting, isn't he, when he's singing? The way that he moves around the stage, and he's quite dramatic
performer. It's all about the theatre show, really. It's like Alice Cooper's even more extreme theatre, but the Dio was all about this whole era of rock music and metal sort of merging on metal was all about drama and theatre and the stage props and how it was all about that. It was all about a scene. But I mean, I mentioned at the start of the show about shouts out to Doug Aldridge, what he's going through and that. But one of the things I did when I was deep diving into Doug Aldridge a lot was I watched this DVD, which I ended up buying, Holy Diver Live. I think the music's on Spotify for it, but go and have a listen to it, because they play the whole album in its entirety, and it works as a set list. It's just brilliant. I mean, what I'm getting at is it's great to hear the songs played start to finish in that order, which is fantastic. It's phenomenal, but more importantly, the flow of the songs highlights what I reckon is what a perfect album is, really. So yeah, go and check it out, guys. If you go and check it out, yeah, it's great because he plays the album in its entirety, and then he does some classic Rainbow and Sabbath and stuff like that as well. So it's well and truly worth watching. You've seen that, Zakk, haven't you? You've seen that?
Yeah. I'll give you a little interesting fact on that one too. Doug's not even using his own gear for that album. I think Craig Goldie had an accident or something, and Doug was flown in, and he had to learn some of those songs on the plane.
Really?
Some of the ones. I mean, he'd obviously been with Dio before and knew the bulk of it, but by then he was playing in Whitesnake.
Yeah.
So it's a whole just to relearn another catalog when you're in one band space in your head. He does a great job.
Yeah.
What a phenomenal guitar player! Then I did not know that.
That's Craig Goldie's gear he's playing through.
I have heard that, Zakk, and I forgot about that. So thanks for bringing that up. But yeah, look, it's phenomenal. Go and watch that, guys, if you haven't. I'm not sure if it's on YouTube, but
sure,
try and get your hands on it somewhere and check it out. It's great to hear all the songs in set list order. I mean, album order. It's great.
Yeah, good point, bro. Thank you for mentioning that as a guitar player, Doug, and we do hope that he gets better because there's, not a lot of guitar players that can go and do what he does from 3 or 4 guitar players' perspectives and deliver it and sound cool, sound like the album, and then when he's playing live, just take it and add his own little bit of stuff. It's, as you said, Zakk, it's a whole different headspace. Wow! I'm going to go and check that out. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Again.
Wow. Just to be clear, though, Zakk, he's using his guitar, though, isn't he? Like he's using his Paul. Yeah.
But he's plugged into someone else's amp setup and effects rigs and all that, but he's got his own Les Paul, his own guitar.
Yeah, he's got his own guitars, but it's not his rig, which scare the bejesus out of me, really, and especially knowing that we're going to film it and put it out on a live album as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
Shit.
Oh yeah, a little bit of pressure. No, it's phenomenal.
Doug, if you're ever watching this and you want to come on and tell us about it, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, is it? No worries. Zakk will join us, I'm sure. Yeah, Doug's an amazing guitar player, and that. What's it that that DVD does with Dio? What's it called?
Evil and that's his rig. So that sounds incredible. Evil and Divine.
Evil Divine. Go and watch that too, guys. If you're a Dio fan, I'm not sure. I think I've seen some of that footage on YouTube recently, but it's phenomenal. And Doug's playing on that got me right into it. And that's the DVD. Yeah, that's what got me into Doug and his tone. I was just like, man, this guy's got the tone. Yeah, he's got it.
Yeah, it's huge on that DVD.
Yeah,
I was the same. I'd heard about him and heard he joined Dio and got Killing the Dragon, and was like, wow, this is sort of back to the Vivian Campbell days, And then got that live DVD. I was just like, wow, this guitar tone's monstrous.
That's a great album, actually. Killing the Dragon. I think that's a great album. I listened to it not long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, man, Dougie's got his thing happening. It's Doug Aldridge, even though he's got his influences on his sleeve and you can hear it. But it's definitely back a little bit more of this sort of record that we've just done, that sort of vibe with a modern production. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
We're going to wind up the show. We're getting close to 2 hours. Zakk, as ever, bro, thank you for joining us. And there's a nice, wonderful comment here from our brother in California. Fantastic to have access to a show where he can experience an artist like you and Brad and participate in it. Love it. And, thank you for the kind words because, at the end of the day, that's what all we're doing is we're just getting together as friends and fans of the music and talking about it and just sharing our experiences and our past and reliving, standing in line when you're in year 10 buying the album, Zakk. Not often do you get to share those experiences with a lot of people, and that's what you can do on our show. We ask you please to go and check. I'll include Zakk's social media links to this video if you're watching on replay. Zakk's going to be hitting the road. I want to say again, Zakk, thank you, bro, for joining us. You have a permanent invitation here on our show. Anytime you want to come on, if there's an album that we're ranking that you want to come on as a guest, you're more than welcome. And if there's anything that you're doing coming up and you want to take advantage of our channel here to promote anything that you're doing, get in touch with Brad. That's the least we can do. So you have a vehicle there for anything like that. That's the least we can do, isn't it, Brad?
100%.
Thanks, guys.
I'll just say, Zakk, thanks, brother, for joining us. I've been eagerly awaiting to do this one with you. We always say we're going to catch up. It never happens, but it's great to catch up with you online.
You too.
Great to be up in person soon. For anyone who doesn't know, Zakk and I played together in an 80s show called Rewind 80s. And, it was always some of the most fun times I've had in that band was playing alongside you, brother. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for picking this great record. And, God bless you, mate. We'll catch up soon, no doubt.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was unreal as always.
Yeah.
And we'll attach the previous shows too that Zakk has done on this if you are watching and you want to go and see those shows, because we've done, like I said at the intro, at least 3 or 4 now with Zakk. In the green room, we were talking about football, and Zakk mentioned to me, I knew this though, because being an Australian, I'm always going to ask an Australian, what AFL team do you support? And, I knew that Zakk was a Hawthorn man. Well done for you guys for making the top 8, bro, because at the beginning of the season, you guys... mate, and I'm a Bombers fan, and I've got another mate who's a Hawthorn fan, and I was giving him shit. And mate, I had to take it sideways, bro, in the end, because we lost 9 in a row. So well done, Hawthorn, the Mighty Hawks.
Mighty Hawks.
Yeah.
We're out of here.
Stick around for a minute or two, Zakk, afterwards. But thanks everyone for joining, and subscribe. Everyone in the chat, I'm not going to go through it all again, but thank you everyone for joining us and giving your rankings. It's always a highlight to the show. So please come back next week, and goodbye. See you next time.
Awesome. Zakk's passed the audition, bro. So Simon, you're gonna have to tell Simon he's not coming back. Okay? Can you tell Simon that?
The Rock Professor. No, we can't tell. We can't. Oh, look, you're playing silly buggers again, ain't you, Andrew? With it live still.
Oh! No! Simon is coming back. Oh! Sorry, folks. Oh.